In a world where voices compete to be heard, silence often feels like an anomaly, a blank space, an absence, or even a weakness. Yet silence holds a transformative power, one that allows us to connect more deeply with ourselves and others in ways that words cannot. When we choose silence over the noise, we step into a force so strong that it can reshape our lives, relationships, and ambitions. Silence isn't passive. Rather, it's a deliberate act of empowerment, a choice to engage with the world from a place of calm and clarity. Our culture teaches us that loudness equates to strength. We see the world rewarding those who speak up and take the stage, as though the louder voices are inherently right or stronger. However, silence is a strength that requires a different type of bravery, the courage to be still and attentive rather than reactive. This quiet confidence allows us to listen more, both to the world around us and to our own inner voice. It fosters patience, helping us to wait before acting, to absorb before reacting. People who embody the strength of silence are often seen as calm anchors in chaotic environments. They know that not everything demands an immediate response, and this quiet reserve is noticed and respected. The power of silence comes from its transformative nature. Silence invites introspection, and in that introspection, we gain insights that words might miss. Think of silence as fertile ground where understanding and wisdom can take root, unhindered by the clutter of external distractions. In choosing silence, we tell ourselves that we don't need to rush to conclusions or constantly assert ourselves to be valued. Rather, we trust the process of observation and reflection. In doing so, we find a clarity that cannot be achieved through constant talking or defending our ideas. Choosing silence is also about reframing our perception of strength. Strength is not about shouting above the crowd. It's about knowing when to remain still and letting our energy settle. When we step back and observe, we notice details and patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed. This strategic silence is powerful. It gives us time to listen, understand, and decide. We don't waste energy on defending ourselves unnecessarily or getting drawn into unproductive conflicts. In this space of silence, we become aware of our intentions and align ourselves with our true desires rather than being driven by impulsive reactions. Silence allows us to embody a confidence that isn't easily shaken by external pressures. By choosing not to engage in every debate or justify ourselves constantly, we reinforce that our worth isn't tied to the approval of others. The quiet power that comes from within radiates, and people can sense when someone is centered in this way. Those who cultivate silence in their lives become more perceptive, grounded, and self-assured. They're no longer in a hurry to prove themselves because they know who they are. The world becomes less about external validation and more about self-affirmation. As we embrace silence, we learn that words are tools to be used wisely. Silence teaches us that when we do speak, our words carry more weight. We learn to speak with intention, allowing silence to frame our words so that they resonate deeper. Our voices gain a quiet authority, a reflection of the internal strength we've built through silence. Silence, in this sense, becomes a transformative force that cultivates wisdom, patience, and resilience. Through it, we find that true power is not in shouting to be heard, but in being so grounded that our very presence speaks volumes. Silence makes many of us uneasy. It brings to the surface discomforts, insecurities, and thoughts that we might prefer to avoid. This aversion to silence often comes from societal expectations. From a young age, we're encouraged to speak up, assert ourselves, and leave a mark. There's an unspoken belief that silence is emptiness, an absence, and that we should fill it with our voices to matter. Yet, beneath this fear of silence lies the reality that silence is not an empty void. It's an active space, a chance to connect with our inner selves and confront our true thoughts and feelings. In a society that rewards extroversion and visibility, silence can feel like stepping back into a shadow. Speaking up is often seen as the path to leadership, recognition, and respect, while silence is interpreted as a lack of strength or confidence. This perception is misguided, however, because silence requires more strength than speaking out. It requires the ability to hold back, to observe, and to trust in oneself. Silence can feel uncomfortable because it confronts us with the unknown, both within and around us. It allows unfiltered thoughts to rise and encourages reflection, which is often avoided in the rush of daily life. Silence brings a stillness that encourages a deeper form of strength, one that doesn't rely on external validation. When we choose to remain quiet, we reclaim control over our reactions. In those quiet moments, we aren't swayed by the rush to fill space with words. We're not rushing to assert or explain ourselves, and this restraint provides a sense of self-assurance that words cannot. We no longer feel the need to prove our worth by how much we say or how loudly we say it. Instead, we show strength by knowing that our value lies in our presence, our patience, and our mindful choices. The discomfort we feel with silence often stems from fear. Silence demands that we face our thoughts, insecurities, and unresolved feelings. Many people fear silence because it forces introspection, and introspection reveals vulnerabilities. It uncovers the areas where we doubt ourselves, where we feel inadequate, or where we struggle with certain emotions. Yet, it's through this quiet self-confrontation that growth occurs. Silence is a mirror, showing us our true selves without the noise of external influences. In this process, we come to understand ourselves better, making silence a crucial part of self-awareness and personal evolution. Reclaiming silence means redefining strength, shifting from speaking to observing. As we reclaim silence, we learn that strength isn't just in making ourselves heard, but in learning to listen, both to others and to ourselves. We begin to appreciate silence as a sanctuary, a place of comfort rather than avoidance. This is not an absence of engagement, rather, it's an intentional choice to step back, reflect, and allow things to unfold. In a world constantly vying for our attention, silence becomes a radical act of self-care, a reminder that we don't have to constantly prove our worth. We can be enough just as we are, resting in the power of quiet confidence. Silence is more than the absence of noise. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery. In silence, we are stripped of distractions and external influences, and we are left with only ourselves. This space gives us the opportunity to reflect on our thoughts, emotions, and motivations, uncovering truths that might otherwise remain buried beneath daily life's demands. When we choose silence, we invite the possibility of understanding ourselves on a deeper level, opening the door to greater self-awareness and clarity. Our thoughts can be scattered by constant noise and activity, making it difficult to separate what we truly feel from what others expect of us. Silence offers a space to filter out these expectations, allowing us to connect with our genuine thoughts and emotions. In the quiet, we can confront our inner selves, embracing the parts we often push away, our fears, insecurities, and desires. This process isn't always comfortable. Silence holds a mirror to our inner world, showing us aspects of ourselves that we may not always be proud of or want to face. However, it's through this honest self-reflection that growth and self-discovery occur. Solitude plays a crucial role in this journey. When we are alone, we're free from the influence of others' opinions and judgments, creating an environment where true introspection can take place. In solitude, silence becomes a companion, guiding us through our inner landscapes. This solitude allows us to recognize our own voice amid the cacophony of external pressures. As we spend time with ourselves, we start to understand our values, motivations, and aspirations more clearly. We learn what truly matters to us, independent of societal norms or expectations, and this knowledge empowers us to live authentically. Embracing solitude and silence teaches us to accept ourselves fully, both our strengths and our weaknesses. In this quiet space, we cultivate a deeper self-compassion, recognizing that we are works in progress. We begin to see that our flaws and fears are not obstacles, but stepping stones to greater self-knowledge and growth. As we confront our vulnerabilities, we build resilience and learn to rely on our own wisdom rather than constantly seeking approval from others. Silence allows us to become our own guide. It enables us to sift through the noise, letting go of the thoughts and beliefs that no longer serve us. In the quiet, we connect with our intuition, that inner compass that guides us toward what feels right for us. By embracing silence as a path to self-discovery, we develop a clearer sense of purpose and direction. We learn to trust ourselves, our instincts, and our unique journey. Silence, then, becomes more than a pause. It becomes a tool for creating a life that aligns with our true selves. Silence can be one of the most powerful strategic tools at our disposal. As a quiet observer, we gain insights and understanding that aren't accessible to those who feel compelled to speak first. When we choose silence, we take on the role of the observer, allowing ourselves to watch, listen, and learn. In doing so, we gather invaluable information about people, situations, and dynamics without immediately interjecting our perspective. Silence, in this way, becomes an act of strategic patience and calculated restraint. The advantage of being a quiet observer is that it gives us a broader perspective. Rather than reacting instantly, we have the luxury of time to fully assess what's happening around us. Silence allows us to notice details that others might overlook, the subtleties in body language, tone, and expression. By not jumping to conclusions or forcing our viewpoint into a conversation, we become attuned to what's truly being communicated beneath the surface. This awareness grants us a unique edge, as we are equipped with deeper insights and a clearer understanding before taking any action. Silence is also a form of listening not just to words, but to unspoken messages. In moments of silence, people reveal more than they might intend, often filling the quiet with information that they wouldn't have shared otherwise. As we listen without the need to respond, we become aware of underlying emotions, intentions, and insecurities that aren't apparent on the surface. Silence invites others to open up, giving us the opportunity to gather insights that allow for more thoughtful and informed responses. Choosing to stay quiet in a world that values constant conversation and debate can reveal more than speaking up ever could. By remaining silent, we can gauge others' motivations, understand group dynamics, and assess the environment without getting caught up in the impulse to contribute right away. Silence, in this sense, is not about withholding, but about discerning. We recognize that not every situation requires our input, and sometimes our silence can hold more power than our words. When we eventually do choose to speak, our words carry a greater weight because they come from a place of clarity and intentionality. Silence, used as a strategic tool, allows us to communicate effectively without wasting energy on unnecessary chatter. We're not speaking to fill space, we're speaking to contribute meaningfully. People listen more intently when we've held back, understanding that our words are thoughtful and purposeful. This quiet confidence often commands more respect than those who dominate every conversation. Strategic silence also helps us manage conflicts and tense situations. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can use silence to de-escalate, giving ourselves and others time to cool down and reflect. Silence grants us control over our responses, enabling us to choose actions that are in line with our values rather than our emotions in the heat of the moment. In this way, silence becomes a tool for self-mastery, teaching us to respond rather than react. Through silence, we gain the patience to observe, the wisdom to listen, and the confidence to act only when necessary. It's a skill that allows us to navigate life with a sense of calm, purpose, and strength. Listening is a skill that seems simple on the surface, yet true. Deep listening is a rare and powerful form of connection. In a world where conversations often turn into competitions to be heard, the art of listening requires an intentional approach. Real listening is more than waiting for a chance to respond. It's about giving full attention, creating a space where the other person feels seen, heard, and understood. This depth of listening goes beyond words, reaching into the heart of what the other person is experiencing. When we practice deep listening, we hold space for another person without the urge to fill it with our own thoughts, opinions, or solutions. In that silence, we communicate something even more profound than words can convey: empathy and respect. Interruptions are common in conversations, often cutting short the opportunity to fully understand what someone is saying. In true listening, we resist the urge to interject, allowing others to express themselves fully. Silence in listening is about withholding judgment, letting go of the desire to categorize or evaluate what is being said, and instead focusing entirely on the speaker's message and emotions. It's an act of respect, a choice to prioritize the other person's experience over our own assumptions or biases. This openness fosters trust, encouraging others to share more honestly and openly, knowing they won't be judged or interrupted. One of the most transformative aspects of listening in silence is the empathy it cultivates. When we're truly listening, we aren't just hearing words, we're attuning ourselves to the feelings, fears, and aspirations behind those words. This silent empathy deepens our understanding of others' experiences and perspectives, creating connections that transcend superficial conversations. In this quiet, we begin to see people as they are, rather than as reflections of our own thoughts or needs. This type of listening is a gift to others and a form of personal growth, expanding our capacity for compassion and understanding. In practicing silent listening, we also give others the chance to hear themselves more clearly. Often, people need to process their thoughts out loud to understand their feelings. When we offer them silence, they have room to explore, reconsider, and even find their own answers. It's in this quiet exchange that the real depth of connection emerges, where understanding flourishes without the need for constant dialogue. Listening with silence empowers others to reflect, think deeply, and feel validated in a way that mere conversation can rarely achieve. True listening is a powerful tool for cultivating empathy, patience, and respect. When we practice this art, we become more attuned to others and to ourselves, deepening our relationships and broadening our perspective. The art of listening isn't just a skill, it's a way of honoring the humanity in each of us. Silence is not simply an absence, it's a practice that teaches us patience and resilience. In a world that prizes immediacy and quick fixes, the ability to be still and silent becomes a rare skill. Silence teaches us to hold space without the need for instant gratification, helping us cultivate patience in a profound way. When we practice silence, we are training ourselves to wait, to be present, and to release the urge to constantly act or control outcomes. This patience is a discipline that allows us to face challenges with a calm, steady presence rather than rushing to solve or escape them. Through silence, we become more aware of the ebb and flow of our thoughts and emotions, developing an inner stillness that is not swayed by every discomfort or challenge that comes our way. This resilience is born from the ability to endure without reacting, a quality that silence nurtures by teaching us to sit with ourselves, even in moments of uncertainty or adversity. In silence, we find that we have the capacity to be still even when situations around us are chaotic. This inner quiet becomes our anchor, providing a sense of stability and strength that isn't easily shaken by external events. Challenges are a part of life, and silence teaches us that not every challenge requires immediate action or reaction. Sometimes the best way to face difficulty is to allow ourselves to be silent, to absorb what's happening without rushing to resolve it. In these moments of quiet endurance, we find that we are stronger and more capable than we may have realized. Silence cultivates patience by reminding us that we don't always need to act to overcome something. Sometimes, simply being present with it is enough. This approach not only builds resilience, but also gives us the clarity to respond more thoughtfully when we do choose to act. When we practice silence, we're learning to withstand discomfort without losing our composure. This resilience allows us to endure setbacks, losses, and frustrations with grace. Silence becomes a refuge in which we can regroup, reflect, and regain our strength. It's an internal sanctuary that we can retreat to in difficult times, knowing that this quiet space within us holds the capacity for both patience and strength. As we grow more comfortable with silence, we find that we can face challenges without the need for constant distraction or escape. We develop a tolerance for discomfort, knowing that it won't last forever and that we have the inner strength to endure it. This resilience isn't just about enduring hardship, it's also about learning from it. Silence gives us the space to reflect on our experiences, to understand what we can take from them, and to build ourselves up for future challenges. By practicing silence, we cultivate a deeper, quieter strength that isn't dependent on circumstances. It's a strength rooted in the knowledge that we can face whatever comes our way, not by overpowering it, but by patiently enduring and growing through it. In this way, silence becomes a powerful tool for personal growth, teaching us that resilience is not about never facing difficulty, but about facing it with patience and grace. Silence builds within us a wellspring of strength, a reminder that we are capable of handling whatever life brings. Through silence, we cultivate both patience and resilience, preparing ourselves to navigate life's challenges with a steady, unshakable calm. Silence is a gateway to inner peace, a state of calm that can feel elusive amid the constant noise of daily life. The world around us is filled with distractions, devices buzzing, conversations swirling, and endless demands on our time. Amid this chaos, finding peace requires a deliberate choice to embrace silence, creating a space where external noise fades and internal calm can flourish. When we choose to quiet the external noise, we open ourselves to a deeper sense of tranquility, reconnecting with a stillness that grounds us in the present moment. Making silence a daily practice is a powerful way to cultivate mindfulness, the art of being fully aware of our thoughts, emotions, and surroundings without judgment. When we set aside time each day for silence, we're creating a sanctuary for our minds, a place where we can observe without reacting. In this space, mindfulness grows as we become more attuned to our inner landscape. Silence invites us to let go of the constant flow of thoughts and simply be, experiencing the present moment in its purest form. This mindful silence allows us to see ourselves and our lives with greater clarity, free from the noise of stress and distraction. Letting go of chaos to experience tranquility is not always easy, especially when we're accustomed to busyness. However, when we practice silence, we give ourselves permission to release the need for constant activity, recognizing that peace lies not in doing, but in simply being. This practice helps us detach from the hustle and bustle, making room for a sense of calm that can only be found in stillness. Silence teaches us that tranquility is a choice, a state of mind that we cultivate by stepping away from the external pressures and demands. In silence, we find that true peace is an internal experience, one that isn't influenced by the chaos around us. As silence becomes a daily practice, it transforms from a temporary refuge into a natural state of being. We begin to carry this inner peace with us into all areas of our lives, approaching challenges with a calm mind and an open heart. The more we embrace silence, the more we realize that inner peace isn't something we achieve once and keep forever. It's something we nurture each day through mindful quiet. In doing so, we create a life rooted in tranquility, one that isn't easily shaken by the noise and chaos of the outside world. Silence is a powerful tool for building self-control, a quality that allows us to navigate life with greater purpose and discipline. In moments of silence, we are given the opportunity to pause, to step back from our immediate impulses and emotional reactions. This pause cultivates discipline, teaching us to observe our emotions without letting them control us. When we choose silence over impulsive speech or action, we're practicing a form of restraint that strengthens our ability to manage ourselves in all areas of life. Self-control is not about suppressing emotions, but rather about developing the discipline to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Silence plays a crucial role in this process. When we face a situation that triggers an emotional response, silence provides us with a buffer, a moment to process what we're feeling before we speak or act. In that moment, we can assess whether our reaction aligns with our values or if it's driven by fleeting emotions. This practice of quiet restraint helps us master our emotional responses, enabling us to choose actions that reflect our true intentions rather than our momentary impulses. Choosing silence over reaction is a conscious decision to prioritize inner control over external expression. In doing so, we become less reactive to the circumstances around us, responding from a place of calm rather than from a need to assert ourselves or prove a point. This choice to remain silent allows us to stay centered and composed, even in difficult situations. It gives us the clarity to consider the consequences of our actions, helping us make decisions that are aligned with our goals and values. Silence, in this way, becomes a tool for self-mastery, teaching us that not every situation requires a response, and that sometimes silence is the most powerful response of all. The discipline that comes from choosing silence extends beyond emotional reactions. It influences all aspects of our lives, helping us develop habits that support our well-being and success. When we practice silence, we become more aware of the choices we make each day, whether in how we spend our time, the food we eat, or the words we speak. Silence cultivates a mindful discipline that encourages us to make choices with intention, grounded in self-control rather than immediate gratification. This awareness empowers us to build a life that reflects our true values and desires. In mastering self-control through silence, we discover a quiet strength that does not depend on the approval or recognition of others. This inner control gives us the resilience to face challenges with grace and patience, knowing that we don't need to react to every situation. We become comfortable with stillness, confident in our ability to handle whatever comes our way without needing to prove ourselves or seek validation. Silence, then, becomes a source of true power, a power rooted not in control over others, but in mastery over ourselves. Through silence, we cultivate self-control, allowing us to live with greater intention, purpose, and inner strength. Silence is a valuable ally in decision-making, offering a space where clarity and wisdom can emerge without the clutter of external noise or internal haste. When we approach decisions with silence, we allow ourselves the time to think, feel, and process. Instead of rushing to an answer, we create room to explore our options, considering each one thoughtfully. Silence enables us to make well-considered choices that reflect our values, goals, and priorities, rather than momentary impulses or the influence of others. By pausing in silence, we gain insight into the long-term consequences of our actions, ensuring that our choices are not only beneficial in the short term, but sustainable over time. The power of silence lies in its ability to give us the space for reflection before action. In a world that often pressures us to act quickly, silence allows us to slow down and think deeply. In this quiet pause, we can evaluate our motivations, intentions, and potential outcomes without the distraction of immediate responses or external pressures. Silence provides a buffer, a chance to step back from the urgency of the situation and see the bigger picture. Through reflection, we can discern whether a decision aligns with our core values and whether it contributes to our overall vision for our lives. Silence acts as a gateway to wise decision-making because it fosters self-awareness and clarity. When we take time to be silent, we connect more closely with our intuition, allowing us to access insights that might be overlooked in the rush of daily life. This quiet reflection enables us to listen to our inner voice, which often holds the wisdom we need to make the best decision. In silence, we can sort through our thoughts and feelings, identifying what truly matters to us. This process helps us make decisions that are not only rational, but also deeply fulfilling, as they reflect our authentic desires and aspirations. Moreover, silence allows us to detach from the emotional intensity that can cloud judgment. It helps us resist the urge to make decisions based on fleeting emotions or reactions, which may not serve our best interests. By creating space for calm and centered thinking, silence prevents us from reacting impulsively, empowering us to respond in ways that align with our true intentions. In decision-making, silence becomes a form of discipline, guiding us to choose paths that resonate with who we are at our core, leading to a life that is grounded, balanced, and purposeful. Silence is a powerful tool for setting boundaries, allowing us to communicate our limits without needing to explain, justify, or defend ourselves. Often, we feel pressured to elaborate on our boundaries, fearing that silence might be misinterpreted as indifference or weakness. However, silence in boundary setting can communicate a quiet strength that speaks for itself. By choosing silence, we signal that our boundaries are firm, based on self-respect, and do not require validation from others. In this way, silence becomes a form of self-affirmation, reminding both ourselves and others that our well-being and peace of mind are priorities. One way we can use silence to set boundaries is by saying no without words. This might mean declining invitations, opting out of conversations, or simply choosing not to engage in situations that don't serve us. In these moments, silence is a powerful statement, a non-verbal no that holds as much weight as words ever could. By choosing not to respond, we protect our time, energy, and mental well-being, demonstrating that our silence is intentional, a quiet assertion of our right to choose what we engage with. This kind of boundary setting doesn't require confrontation. Rather, it allows us to communicate our preferences without escalating into conflict. Silence also helps us set personal and relational limits, creating space for healthy interactions that respect our needs. When we establish boundaries silently, we aren't driven by a need to be understood or accepted by others. Instead, we're grounded in self-respect, prioritizing our inner peace over external approval. For example, when someone tests our limits, choosing silence over engaging in a debate can effectively communicate that we are not willing to compromise our values or bend to pressure. This quiet assertion of boundaries is not only effective, but also empowering, reinforcing our sense of self-worth and autonomy. Using silence to build boundaries is an act of self-respect. It allows us to choose what we accept into our lives and what we reject, without feeling obligated to explain ourselves. This is particularly important in relationships where setting boundaries can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. By choosing silence, we create a protective barrier that upholds our values and ensures that our relationships are mutually respectful. Silence enables us to maintain control over our interactions, making it clear that we're willing to protect our emotional well-being, even if that means withdrawing or limiting contact. In addition to setting boundaries with others, silence helps us establish boundaries with ourselves. This might mean setting aside quiet time to reflect, disconnecting from social media, or creating space to recharge emotionally. Silence becomes a form of self-care, a way of respecting our own needs and limits. In honoring these boundaries, we reinforce our commitment to living in alignment with our values and well-being. Silence in this context is a commitment to nurturing our mental and emotional health, giving us the strength to engage fully and authentically in our lives. Through silence, we learn that boundaries are not barriers, but essential practices of self-respect. Silence allows us to communicate these boundaries with dignity and grace, empowering us to protect our energy and maintain our sense of self. By embracing silence as a boundary-setting tool, we cultivate relationships and environments that honor our worth, creating a life where our needs and values are respected without the need for constant explanation or justification. Silence is often overlooked as a component of effective communication, yet it plays a vital role in amplifying the impact of our words. In a world where people are encouraged to speak up and assert themselves constantly, mastering the art of speaking only when needed becomes a rare and valuable skill. Silence in communication is not about withholding, rather, it's about making our words count. By choosing our moments carefully, we allow our messages to carry greater weight and resonance. This mindful approach to speaking helps ensure that our words serve a purpose, connecting with others in meaningful and memorable ways. The power of fewer words lies in their clarity and intentionality. When we speak less, we give each word room to be heard, valued, and understood. Our words gain significance because they are no longer lost in a sea of unnecessary language. This precision allows our messages to be more impactful, creating space for others to truly listen. When we aren't rushing to fill every silence, we give ourselves and others time to process what has been said. This respectful pause adds depth to the conversation, making our words linger longer in the minds of our listeners. The result is a form of communication that is both respectful and powerful, building connections rather than merely exchanging information. Non-verbal communication, often overlooked, becomes a powerful tool when we embrace silence. Our gestures, expressions, and body language speak volumes, often conveying more than words alone. Silence allows us to be fully present, using our non-verbal cues to show engagement, empathy, and understanding. A gentle nod, a steady gaze, or a patient pause can communicate support, respect, and connection without a single spoken word. This silent form of communication helps bridge gaps that words cannot fill, reaching beyond what is said to create a shared understanding. In this way, silence enriches our interactions, deepening bonds and enhancing mutual respect. Choosing silence in communication also encourages others to share more openly. When we're not eager to respond immediately, we create a space for others to express themselves fully. Silence becomes an invitation for others to be heard without interruption or judgment. This approach to communication builds trust, as it shows that we are there to listen rather than simply waiting for our turn to speak. In this sense, silence becomes an act of generosity, a gift that lets others feel valued and respected. Through mindful silence, we elevate our interactions, allowing every word spoken to have greater purpose and significance. Silence is a quiet guardian of humility, a quality that keeps the ego in check and allows us to see ourselves in perspective. In a world that often values loud confidence and self-promotion, silence teaches us that humility doesn't require a constant assertion of our worth. By speaking less, we cultivate an inner humility that doesn't depend on validation or praise from others. Silence, in this way, becomes a discipline that reminds us to focus less on how we are perceived and more on the impact of our actions. It is in the absence of self-centered chatter that humility can truly flourish. Practicing humility by speaking less is a powerful reminder that our actions often speak louder than our words. When we're not compelled to constantly talk about our achievements, strengths, or opinions, we give others the chance to see who we are through what we do rather than what we say. This restraint is not about diminishing ourselves. Rather, it's about letting our actions reveal our character. By choosing silence over self-promotion, we allow our deeds to speak for themselves, embodying a humility that doesn't need to be announced. This approach earns respect because it shows that we're secure enough in ourselves to let go of the need for constant acknowledgement. Silence also encourages us to focus outward rather than inward. When we're not preoccupied with sharing our thoughts or experiences, we become more open to understanding others. This shift from self to other is a core component of humility, as it demonstrates a willingness to place the needs, feelings, and perspectives of others above our own. In these moments of silence, we become active listeners, tuning in to what others have to share without the need to relate it back to ourselves. This humility creates a sense of mutual respect, reminding us that everyone has something valuable to contribute, and that true wisdom often comes from listening rather than speaking. Letting actions speak louder than words also grounds us in authenticity. When we allow our lives to reflect our values through action rather than speech, we become more aligned with our true selves. Silence becomes a way to live authentically, embodying humility by choosing to let our impact speak for itself. This quiet approach to life reinforces the idea that who we are is defined not by what we say about ourselves, but by how we show up in the world. By letting our actions take the lead, we create a lasting impression of integrity and strength, rooted in humility rather than ego. Silence as a practice of humility also protects us from the pitfalls of pride. When we're not constantly speaking, we have fewer opportunities to boast, exaggerate, or compare ourselves to others. This silence becomes a boundary that shields us from the temptations of ego, creating a space where we can be more grounded, centered, and honest with ourselves. It reminds us that humility is not about shrinking, but about standing firmly in our worth without needing to broadcast it. Silence allows us to embrace our strengths and acknowledge our limitations, offering a balanced perspective that fosters personal growth and self-acceptance. In embracing silence, we embody humility in its truest form. It is a humility that does not demand recognition or validation, but rather finds contentment in simply being. This quiet humility becomes a source of strength, enabling us to walk through life with grace, grounded in the knowledge that our value lies not in what we say, but in how we live. Through silence, we cultivate a deeper understanding of humility, discovering that true confidence and self-worth do not require a voice. They radiate naturally from within. Silence is often seen as empty, but for creativity, it is a space full of potential, a fertile ground where imagination can flourish without limits or distractions. In the quiet moments, our minds are free to wander, explore, and make connections that might otherwise go unnoticed amid constant noise and activity. Silence provides the necessary pause that lets ideas settle and take shape. It's in these silent spaces that the seeds of creativity are planted, allowing us to dream, reflect, and create with greater depth and authenticity. In a world that rarely slows down, finding inspiration often requires a deliberate choice to step back and be still. When we embrace silence, we give ourselves permission to listen to our own thoughts and ideas without the interference of external opinions or immediate judgments. This quiet listening sparks inspiration by allowing us to connect with our inner voice, that deep well of intuition and insight that is easily drowned out by the noise of daily life. In silence, we hear the whispers of new possibilities, and in those whispers, inspiration is born. Ideas that were once faint or unclear come into focus, giving us the clarity to bring them to life. Silence fuels innovation by creating a space where we can think beyond the usual constraints. In the stillness, we're able to approach challenges with a fresh perspective, unbound by the limitations of routine thinking or preconceived notions. This openness allows us to take creative risks, to imagine what might be rather than what already is. Silence grants us the freedom to explore, experiment, and envision, creating an environment where innovation thrives. By letting go of the need to constantly produce or perform, we make room for creativity to unfold naturally, fueled by curiosity and the joy of discovery. When we embrace silence as a source of creativity, we find that some of our best ideas arise in the moments of stillness, often when we least expect them. Whether it's a quiet walk, a peaceful morning, or simply a few minutes of intentional solitude, these silent moments act as a catalyst for our imagination. They remind us that creativity doesn't need to be forced or scheduled, it simply needs space to emerge. In the silence, we connect with our creative potential, discovering that our minds have the power to generate ideas, solutions, and visions that can change the way we see the world. Silence is a powerful tool for cultivating patience in relationships, a quality that allows us to connect more deeply with those we care about. In our fast-paced world, conversations often feel rushed, with people eager to speak rather than truly listen. Silence, however, gives us the space to slow down, to be present, and to appreciate the other person without the need to fill every moment with words. By choosing silence, we create a safe space where our loved ones can feel heard, valued, and respected. This silence is a gift, one that nurtures trust and intimacy, strengthening our relationships in a profound way. When we practice silence in our relationships, we are offering the gift of holding space. Holding space means being there for someone without trying to fix, solve, or change their experience. It's a quiet support, a willingness to be present without judgment or impatience. In silence, we allow our loved ones to express themselves fully, giving them the freedom to explore their thoughts and emotions without interruption. This silent presence is a powerful act of love, showing that we care enough to listen, even if we don't have all the answers. Through silence, we honor the experiences of those we care about, deepening our connection by simply being there. Silence in relationships also teaches us to be patient, especially when emotions are high or communication is difficult. Instead of reacting impulsively or jumping in with responses, silence allows us to pause, to absorb what is being shared, and to respond thoughtfully. This pause helps prevent misunderstandings, as we're more likely to listen with empathy and understanding rather than rushing to defend ourselves or prove a point. By choosing silence over immediate reaction, we demonstrate a patience that strengthens our bond, showing that we are willing to take the time to truly understand each other. In practicing silence, we build stronger connections because we are no longer focused on what we're going to say next or how we'll respond. Instead, we are fully present, attentive to the other person's words, expressions, and emotions. This presence creates a foundation of trust and respect, as it shows that we value them enough to listen without judgment or distraction. Silence becomes a bridge, one that connects us more deeply to those we love by allowing us to see and appreciate them for who they are, without imposing our own expectations or assumptions. Silence in relationships is a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful communication happens without words. By creating space for quiet moments, we give ourselves and our loved ones room to breathe, to reflect, and to simply be. In these moments, we find a deeper understanding that goes beyond spoken language, an unspoken bond that strengthens with each silent exchange. Through silence, we cultivate patience, empathy, and love, discovering that the quiet moments we share with others are often the most powerful. Silence is a quality that confident people often carry naturally, revealing a quiet self-assuredness that speaks louder than words. In a world where many feel pressured to assert themselves constantly, the ability to be comfortable with silence reflects a deep confidence. Confident individuals don't feel the need to fill every pause with words. Instead, they are secure in their presence, knowing that their worth doesn't depend on constant affirmation or validation. This comfort with silence shows others that they are at ease with themselves, that they trust their own judgment, and that they don't need external reinforcement to feel complete. Silence fosters self-assuredness by allowing us to connect with our inner voice, building a sense of trust in ourselves that grows over time. When we practice silence, we become more attuned to our thoughts and emotions, understanding them without needing to express them outwardly all the time. This internal alignment reinforces our confidence because we no longer rely on external opinions or praise. We find strength within ourselves, a solid foundation that isn't shaken by outside influences. This quiet self-assurance, born from the habit of listening to ourselves in silence, enables us to move through life with greater certainty, unaffected by the noise of external judgments. Building confidence through a strong inner voice is a process that begins with silence. In the quiet moments, we can examine our beliefs, values, and aspirations, developing a clear sense of who we are and what we stand for. This process of self-reflection strengthens our inner voice, making it a guiding force that we can rely on in any situation. As we cultivate this voice through silence, we become more resilient and grounded, able to trust ourselves in moments of doubt or uncertainty. This confidence radiates outward, showing others that we're secure in ourselves, which naturally attracts respect and admiration. Silence also helps us communicate with intention, another mark of confidence. When we're comfortable with silence, we don't rush to respond or assert ourselves unnecessarily. Instead, we speak only when we have something meaningful to add, allowing our words to carry more weight and purpose. This deliberate approach to communication shows others that we're not easily swayed or pressured, and that we're thoughtful in our responses. Confident people know that silence can be just as powerful as words, and they use it to convey self-assurance, maturity, and respect. Through silence, we cultivate a confidence that doesn't need to be announced, as it's felt by those around us. In the professional world, silence is a powerful tool that can set you apart, helping you to outshine others by fostering respect, understanding, and credibility. Strategic silence builds respect at work because it shows others that you're thoughtful, composed, and discerning. Instead of speaking at every opportunity, you choose your moments carefully, which demonstrates self-control and maturity. This restraint signals that you're focused on quality over quantity, valuing meaningful contributions over superficial exchanges. Colleagues and supervisors notice this measured approach, and over time, it earns their respect, as they recognize that when you do speak, it's with purpose and intention. Silence also allows you to quietly observe and understand workplace dynamics, giving you a nuanced view of the environment. In meetings, conversations, and team interactions, choosing to observe rather than immediately participate helps you gain insights into others' perspectives, personalities, and motivations. This silent observation is invaluable for understanding the unspoken rules and power structures that shape the workplace. By listening intently and paying attention to non-verbal cues, you gain an advantage in navigating complex relationships and situations. You begin to understand who holds influence, what drives decisions, and how to approach different people effectively. In this way, silence becomes a strategic tool that enhances your situational awareness, enabling you to make more informed choices. Letting your actions, not your words, build credibility is another way that silence helps you outshine in professional life. Rather than relying on self-promotion, you demonstrate your competence through the quality of your work and your reliability. Silence allows you to focus on your performance, letting the results speak for themselves. By not constantly seeking acknowledgement or praise, you communicate confidence in your abilities, showing others that you're there to contribute meaningfully, not just to gain attention. This quiet competence speaks volumes, earning you a reputation for integrity and dedication, as others come to trust that you're focused on delivering excellence. Silence also prevents misunderstandings and conflicts that can arise from hastily spoken words or over-explanations. By practicing restraint in communication, you avoid unnecessary arguments or defensive reactions, allowing you to maintain professionalism and composure. In challenging situations, silence becomes a shield, helping you to stay calm and grounded. This measured approach sets you apart as someone who is steady under pressure, someone who doesn't let emotions dictate their actions. Over time, this calm, composed demeanor builds your credibility, as colleagues and supervisors know they can count on you to remain professional even in difficult circumstances. Using silence strategically in the workplace allows you to cultivate an image of reliability and thoughtfulness. You become known as someone who listens, who considers others' viewpoints, and who doesn't react impulsively. This creates a foundation of respect and trust that strengthens your professional relationships and positions you as a respected figure within your team or organization. When people see that you don't rush to fill every silence, they understand that you value reflection, and they begin to value your perspective even more. In the professional world, silence isn't about passivity. It's an active choice that signals confidence, competence, and discernment. Through silence, you can outshine others without saying a word, letting your actions, presence, and results communicate the strength and integrity of your character. This quiet strength is both respected and remembered, building a legacy of professionalism that stands out in any field. Silence is a powerful means of letting go of the need to be right, freeing us from the compulsion to defend our views and prove ourselves to others. When we release the need to constantly assert our perspective, we open ourselves to a greater sense of peace and freedom. Silence helps us let go of control by allowing us to observe without feeling obligated to respond or correct. This quiet surrender brings relief, as we recognize that not every disagreement requires our intervention. By choosing silence, we cultivate the ability to release attachment to our opinions, creating space for inner calm and acceptance. The freedom that comes with not defending ourselves is profound. When we stop striving to be right, we free ourselves from the burdens of argument and tension. Silence allows us to remain centered and focused on what truly matters to us, rather than being swept into debates that often bring little satisfaction or growth. We begin to see that our self-worth isn't dependent on winning arguments or gaining others' approval. Instead, we find a quiet confidence in allowing others to have their views while holding space for our own. This detachment is liberating. It allows us to walk away from situations that don't serve our peace or progress. Using silence to let others express themselves without debate is a generous act of understanding. Often, people don't need us to agree or offer a counterpoint. They simply need to feel heard. By choosing not to respond with rebuttals or corrections, we create a space where they can express their feelings openly, without fear of confrontation. This silence shows respect for their perspectives, fostering connection and trust. It shifts the focus from proving who is right to understanding each other's experiences. This practice not only strengthens our relationships, but also teaches us the humility of embracing different points of view without judgment or interference. Silence also encourages us to look inward, to examine our own need to be right and the fears or insecurities that drive it. Often, the need to prove ourselves comes from a place of inner tension or doubt. By embracing silence, we allow ourselves to explore these feelings without reacting to them. This self-awareness helps us grow, revealing that true strength lies in the ability to let go, to be comfortable with differing opinions, and to focus on what is truly important to us. In this quiet humility, we discover a powerful freedom that brings more peace than any argument could ever provide. Silence has long been a pathway to spiritual growth, offering a sacred space to connect with the divine and explore the depths of our inner selves. In quiet moments, we step away from the noise of the world, entering a realm of stillness where we can listen more closely to the whispers of our spirit. Silence opens doors to deeper spirituality, as it creates a sanctuary where we can reflect, meditate, and align ourselves with a higher purpose. In these moments of quiet, we become more attuned to the subtle presence of the divine, experiencing a closeness that words alone cannot achieve. Connecting with the divine in silence is a deeply personal experience, one that allows us to feel the presence of something greater than ourselves. In this silence, we release the need for constant requests or explanations, choosing instead to simply be in the presence of the divine. Whether we view this presence as God, the universe, or an inner wisdom, silence gives us the space to feel connected without the interference of thought or language. This connection often feels more genuine in silence, as it is not about asking for things or seeking answers, but about resting in the awareness that we are part of something vast and profound. Silence also serves as a form of inner worship, an act of devotion that requires no words or ritual. In the quiet, we offer our presence as a form of reverence, honoring the divine by simply being still. This practice of inner worship allows us to focus on gratitude, surrender, and reflection, cultivating a sense of awe and humility. Silence becomes a space where we acknowledge our place in the universe, where we can feel the depth of our spirit without needing to analyze or explain it. This silent worship is pure and undistracted, an offering of our undivided attention and presence to the divine. In silence, we become more receptive to spiritual insights and guidance, as our minds are free from the clutter of daily thoughts and concerns. The quiet allows us to access a deeper wisdom within, a knowing that often goes unrecognized in the noise of everyday life. By practicing silence, we create room for this wisdom to emerge, allowing us to see our lives from a higher perspective. We begin to understand that spirituality is not something we must chase or strive for. It is a natural part of us, always present, waiting to be felt in the quiet moments when we choose to listen. Silence also nurtures a sense of peace and acceptance, qualities that are central to spiritual growth. As we sit in stillness, we learn to let go of control and trust in a greater plan. We release the need to understand everything intellectually, embracing the mystery and beauty of the unknown. This surrender brings us closer to our spiritual essence, teaching us that faith often resides not in answers, but in the willingness to be still and open. In silence, we discover a divine peace that exists within us, a place where we can find strength, solace, and a sense of belonging that transcends the physical world. Through silence, we embark on a journey of spiritual growth that doesn't require external validation or structured practices. It is a simple yet profound path, one that invites us to explore the depths of our soul, to commune with the divine, and to cultivate an inner life rich with purpose, peace, and meaning. Silence becomes our guide, leading us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe, reminding us that true spirituality is often found in the quiet spaces of the heart. Silence is often misunderstood as passivity, but when facing life's challenges, it becomes a profound source of resilience and inner strength. In moments of difficulty, silence offers us a way to endure without losing ourselves in the noise of fear, doubt, or despair. Choosing to face challenges quietly doesn't mean ignoring or suppressing our struggles. Rather, it means finding a steady anchor within that remains unaffected by the external chaos. Silence builds resilience by teaching us to rely on our inner resources, cultivating a strength that isn't shaken by temporary setbacks or hardships. In silence, we discover that we can endure far more than we imagined, grounded in a quiet confidence that arises from within. Facing fears without constantly verbalizing them is a courageous act. While there is value in sharing our burdens, there is also immense power in holding space for ourselves, silently confronting what we fear without needing validation or reassurance from others. This quiet courage allows us to stand face to face with our doubts, insecurities, and challenges, giving us the chance to process them independently. When we meet our fears in silence, we develop a form of self-reliance that is not dependent on external support. We learn that we are capable of handling discomfort on our own, that we have within us the resilience needed to overcome difficulties. Enduring challenges in silence requires a type of bravery that isn't often celebrated. Society tends to value open expressions of struggle, but there is profound strength in facing hardship quietly, allowing our actions and perseverance to speak for us. By choosing silence, we communicate that we don't need to prove ourselves or seek sympathy. We're here to endure, to learn, and to grow. This silent endurance is a powerful reminder of our inner strength, a declaration to ourselves that we are capable of surviving and thriving through difficulty. It is in these silent struggles that we build a well of resilience, preparing ourselves for whatever life may bring, grounded in the knowledge that we are enough, just as we are. Embracing silence as a way of life is a commitment to finding peace and fulfillment within, rather than seeking it in the external world. When we make silence a consistent, mindful choice, we choose to live in alignment with our true selves, free from the noise and distractions that often pull us away from what truly matters. This choice to live in quiet presence brings a sense of stability, as we are no longer influenced by every fleeting thought, emotion, or external pressure. Instead, we root ourselves in the calm of silence, allowing it to guide us in our actions, decisions, and relationships. This consistent practice of silence becomes a foundation for a life of purpose, clarity, and contentment. A life rooted in silence attracts fulfillment because it allows us to connect more deeply with our inner desires and values. In silence, we hear the faint whispers of what we truly want, undistorted by societal expectations or the opinions of others. This clarity empowers us to pursue a path that is uniquely ours, leading us toward a life that feels meaningful and authentic. By grounding ourselves in silence, we create space for self-reflection, helping us understand our purpose and guiding us toward choices that align with our deepest aspirations. This quiet alignment with our true self is the key to lasting fulfillment, as it brings us closer to a life that resonates with who we are at our core. The journey of quiet strength is one that leads us to everything we desire, not through force or assertion, but through patience, presence, and inner peace. When we choose silence, we let go of the need to constantly prove, compete, or strive, allowing ourselves to find joy and contentment in the present moment. This quiet strength enables us to navigate life's ups and downs with grace, as we are no longer swayed by temporary challenges or distractions. Instead, we walk through life with a calm confidence, knowing that everything we need is already within us. In this way, silence becomes the source of everything we seek: peace, love, fulfillment, and a life of quiet abundance. By embracing silence as a way of life, we embark on a journey of self-discovery and growth. We begin to see that silence is not an absence, but a presence, a powerful grounding force that connects us to our true selves and the world around us. In this journey, we realize that silence does not limit us. It expands us, opening doors to inner wisdom, resilience, and spiritual insight. It teaches us that the path to fulfillment doesn't require noise, validation, or constant action. Instead, it requires a steady commitment to presence, patience, and peace, qualities that silence naturally nurtures. Living a life of quiet strength is a transformative choice, one that leads us toward everything we desire without the need for outward display or constant striving. In silence, we find a gentle power that attracts the right opportunities, people, and experiences, all of which align with our authentic selves. Through this quiet strength, we create a life of harmony and purpose, fulfilling our desires not by chasing them, but by embodying the peace and clarity that brings them naturally to us. Silence, as a way of life, becomes a journey to the heart of who we are, leading us to a fulfillment that is both profound and lasting.